A third attempt to get civilians out of the besieged city of Mariupol in Ukraine is underway, with international Red Cross vehicles on the move once again. The country's leader, Volodymyr Zelensky, says that Russia is escalating the military conflict in the east of the country, preparing new strikes in the Donbass region while slowly pulling back from the north. Overnight, cruise missiles were fired towards the cities of Dnipro and Odessa. Our defence correspondent Jonathan Beale sent us this report from Odessa.
City life, but not as we know it. Odessa may seem largely unscarred, but the war is still leaving its mark. It's been a safer haven for those fleeing the fighting. Anastasia and her family's been forced to move home not once, but twice by the Russians. Most recently when a missile struck her block of flats in the city of Mykolaiv. It's had a lasting impact on her young children. Anastasia tells me, after the missile strike on our building, my boy Kostya asked me, "Mum, are we going to survive this?" And I was worried we wouldn't. So that was when we decided to leave. Many may have got used to the air raid warnings. Most don't even flinch. But look at the effect it has on 7-year-old Kostya. The wail of the siren only brings tears. For him, it's the sound of danger, death and destruction. A sense of panic to reach shelter quickly. Like Anastasia, Odessa's trying to put on a brave face. Outside the station, local musicians perform a concert of patriotic songs. In this war, music can also be a weapon uniting a city against the Russian invasion.
First of all, we are musicians. We can make something special for people and to make our world better, like with this. Slava Ukraine, yes.
There are still reminders of more peaceful times in this Black Sea resort. But last night, the Russians fired a salvo of cruise missiles towards the city. A fleet of Russian warships are still waiting ominously somewhere over the horizon. The threat hasn't gone away. Jonathan Beale, BBC News, Odessa.
Russian forces are retreating from the capital Kiev, according to UK intelligence sources. They've withdrawn from Hostomel airport to the north of the city, which has seen fighting since the first day of the conflict. The BBC's Jeremy Bowen has reached the airport.
You've got to watch where you put your feet here in the the ruins of Hostomel Airport, about 10 miles from the centre of Kiev. And on day one of the invasion, this was one of Russia's main targets. A great big open area. They could land planes, helicopters, and use it as a staging area for their push into the capital. Now, of course, that didn't happen. Ukrainian resistance was too stiff, and you can see there was a massive battle here. There's a huge amount of debris. All around the airport perimeter, there's broken tanks and lots of unexploded ordnance of different kinds as well. And in the midst of it all, there's this. This is the wreck that was the Maria, the dream, Maria in Ukrainian. And it was the world's biggest cargo aircraft. A huge amount of national pride was wrapped up in this as well. It was a symbol of modernity, of Ukraine's place in the world, striking out across the globe. And now it's a symbol of what's happened to the country.
The BBC's Jeremy Bowen there at Hostomel Airport. Well, our correspondent Anna Foster is in Lviv in the west of the country for us now. And Anna, what is the Ukrainian government saying about the present situation?
Well, one of President Volodymyr Zelensky's closest advisors has been speaking about this afternoon. He says that the movement of troops and of military equipment away from areas like Kiev are happening slowly but noticeably. They say that 30 towns and settlements have now been retaken from Ukrainian forces in that area, which is a significant number, and it reflects perhaps this Russian pullback that was talked about on Monday at those peace talks in Istanbul. But as those Russian forces start to withdraw, we are seeing what is left behind. And just in the last hour or so, graphic video images of one town, Bucha, which had been occupied by Russian forces. We see bodies lying in the street, around 20 bodies in civilian clothing, some of them with their hands tied behind their backs, which would point to perhaps evidence of Russian war crimes having happened in these towns and settlements around Kiev. What the Ukrainian government believe is that this pullback is not any kind of truce or gesture of goodwill, was what was being suggested at the start of the week. They believe it's because Russia wants to refocus its efforts and its firepower on the east of Ukraine, on the Donbas region, and that is where we will see the Russian movement, the Russian troops and tanks and military focusing, Ukraine believes, in these next few weeks.
Anna, thank you. Anna Foster reporting from Lviv. Pope Francis has called for a shared response to the global migration crises on multiple fronts. Speaking to officials in Malta after arriving for a two-day visit, the Pope also appeared to criticise the Russian President Vladimir Putin, saying a powerful leader was stirring up conflicts for nationalist interests. Russian police detained 176 people today following protests against the invasion of Ukraine, according to a human rights group based in Russia. Footage shows police in Moscow and St. Petersburg arresting several women. Thousands have been detained since the invasion began. Russia's Interior Ministry has warned that any attempt to hold unauthorised protests will be prevented and organisers held to account.
It's tempting to think tonight that the Russians have been beaten in northern Ukraine. It is true they are falling back. President Zelensky has confirmed it. But he and most experts agree that Moscow is only regrouping. The territory they are leaving has been laced with mines, Zelensky says, and there will be more assaults to come. Meanwhile, some refugees have made it out of Mariupol in the south, telling stories that make it clear nothing is over in the destroyed city they've left behind. But perhaps the greatest show of resistance continues to be in those areas fully under Russian control, where the residents defy their occupiers without guns and with only their voices. Geraint Vincent reports from Western Ukraine.
This is the rule of the occupier in Ukraine. In the town of Enerhodar, in the south of the country, a protest against the Russian invasion began when people started to sing the Ukrainian national anthem. The Russians responded with stun grenades. In the north, though, the Ukrainian government says its forces, who can now drive through the Russian armoured columns they destroyed, have retaken 30 towns and villages around the capital, Kiev.
But
President Zelensky warned his people of the dangers which persist in the wake of the Russian withdrawal. Airstrikes may continue, he said, and the retreating forces have left landmines and tripwired explosives everywhere, in people's houses, he warned, even under the bodies of the dead. The president's advisors, though, say there's more heavy fighting to come in the east and in the south. In Mykolaiv, the search for survivors grows increasingly desperate in the ruins of a government building destroyed by an airstrike a few days ago. 35 people are now known to have died here. The number of Ukrainians fleeing for their lives, meanwhile, grows with every day that passes. These people came from Mariupol, a city under siege. This woman says she left her son there. He lived near the front line. She doesn't know what happened to him. In the 6th week of this war, the invaders may have given ground, but they have lost none of their appetite for assault on civilian areas. Geraint Vincent, ITV News, Western Ukraine.
Security is being stepped up at the Polish border over fears that people traffickers and potential abusers may be targeting the thousands of Ukrainian refugees fleeing the war. The United Nations has warned the crisis is an opportunity for exploitation. Now, an ITV News investigation has found evidence of men actively seeking out single Ukrainian women. Our correspondent, Rupert Evelyn, reports from Poland.
There's a rumour on the Ukrainian border of people acting suspiciously. The police are on it, and on the lookout for those whose motivation to help refugees may not be honest. Identification is checked, questions asked. This time it's a false alarm, but everyone here knows it won't always be that way, which is why the United Nations warn that this refugee crisis is an opportunity for exploitation.
Many of those people may be desperate, maybe short on cash, and really needing to find informal solutions to moving around, getting to where they're going, and obviously all those things pose huge risks for trafficking.
Officials in Poland are trying to keep people safe. They tell us they haven't spotted anything untoward yet, but ITV News has found worrying examples of questionable behaviour. On a well-known Polish website, we found adverts offering free accommodation to young Ukrainian women. Posing as a single girl in her 20s, we messaged two of the men in those adverts.
Will I need to register somewhere that I live with you?
You don't have to register anywhere, and if you want, when you come to me, we will go to the registration point. Unfortunately, this is not a room, it's just a free bed. This is a big apartment, so another person will easily fit.
He then sent us a picture of his bed. As for the other man, well, he told us,
I can help you, but I want a good, decent girl, in order not to have any problems. First of all, do you have any children?
I have no children. I came here by myself. I would like to work and I want to feel safe.
Do you have a husband or a boyfriend in the war? Do you plan on bringing someone back here? Because I only agree to one person.
We showed the full text conversations to experts in combating human trafficking and slavery.
I think it's a fraud. We know the cases of, for example, accommodation for sex. We know this problem for years. It happens, but now, as for me, it's it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting.
With millions moving around Europe, exposing exploitation may take a long time. It is a sad but inevitable truth that some will find themselves used and trapped by those they believed had sought to help them. Rupert Evelyn, ITV News, Poland.